climate and energy crisis and governance in East Asia. Um, all right, so take a seat and right. So, good morning, everyone. So, welcome to the second day of CAPA International Conferences, and thank you so much for being here with us for from this early morning. So, all right. My name is Michael Kang. I'm an assistant professor at Kyunghee University, Korea, and um, today's session is for climate and energy crises and governance in East Asia, and we do have a lovely three presenters, and it seems to be in the pamphlet we do have like a somewhat different schedules. So we are going to firstly have Dr. Lee's presentation, and then followed by Dr. Fangting Chang from IDE Jetro's presentations, and then going to have a Ms. Lee from Arju University, who is a PhD student at the Arju University. And then each presenter will have a 15 minute, so you can so we do have like a small floor today, so you can enjoy the time, and if you need more time, just let me know. So 15 minutes of the three presentations, we will going to have like a all together discussion session, and the discussion will be done by firstly Dr. Huang, followed by Dr. Bang, and then the third discussion is also the Dr. Chang from ID Jetro, and then so right. Sorry. Yeah. I talk in New York English, so if I'm so fast, just let me know. And right, so we do have a small audiences today and small group of the people here. So just let us invite the presenters at here, and then after done for our three presentations, let's come. I'd like to invite all the presenters and the discussions to the first the big chair in here, and then going to have a discussions together. And then I would like to open the floor discussion for the flowers. So if we don't have any further questions, let's invite Dr. Lee from Aju. Oh, so I forgot to introduce the speakers of today's session. So we do have Dr. Yu Hyun Lee from Aju University, who will be going to the first presenter, and then Fong Ting Chang from the Institute for Developing Economy of JETRO from Japan. So welcome to Korea and welcome to Busan. And then we do have a do we have a Ms. Lee, the third presenter? Oh yeah. So are you going to be the third presenter? You okay? We're ready. Yeah, just let me know if you need any assistance. And then we do have a three also lovely discussions. Dr. Huang also from Aji University. And then we do have Dr. Bang from Seoul Tech, and the third presenter is Dr. Cheng. All right, so I would like to invite Dr. Lee for the first session, and are you ready? Gotcha. I will let you know if we do have a remaining 5 minutes, and that will be it.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Yuan Lee from Aji University. So, actually, this is a co-work with Fangting Chang from ID Jetro and one of my colleagues in Aji University, Professor Park. And uh, I also participated in this co-work. So, if you have any questions about Chinese part and Japanese part, I think Dr. Chang will answer instead of me. Okay. So this is about hydrogen policy in 3 East Asian countries focusing on South Korea, China, and Japan. The research background. The hydrogen economy is a policy-dependent industry whose success is determined by government will and intervention. Governments mobilize diverse instruments such as legal regulation, financial support, information provision to foster the hydrogen ecosystem. and accelerate the carbon neutral transition. So here, policy acts as a catalyst that induces innovation, offsets early market uncertainty, and attracts private investment. So the core problems here, the double-edged nature of policy ultimately reduces to the problem of coherence between policy goals and the concrete instruments they realize them. So depending on the allocative efficiency and the institutional sophistication, policy can be a lever that accelerates the transition or an obstacle that fails to break past dependency and drags it backward. So, what and how do we compare? So, here are the two research questions. First question will be the composition of instrument. What resources does each country mobilize and what policy mix does it form? That's the first question. And the second research question is about institutional signals. What institutional signals does that mix send to the national hydrogen ecosystem? So this work, we do have one key proposition. What determines policy success is not the superiority of any single instrument, but how well coherence among instruments is secured. So we analyze three countries' cases: Korea, China, and Japan, with the same framework. The first will be the South Korea. Um, South Korea has a developmental state tradition, and Korea institutionalized through authority instruments such as laws and statutory plans, complemented by information and finance. The strengths here, the Korean government tried to codify clean hydrogen criteria. And also, they are constantly giving signs, signals toward the green investment. But we do have limitations. It's not legally binding in terms of criteria on private finance. So we are depending on the private criteria such as equator principles or ESG criteria, not mandatory. In terms of authority, strengths here, we try to consolidate the Hydrogen Economy Foundation legally. And the limitation here, imported hydrogen is unestablished. So this is similar with the Japanese situation too. So basically, Japan and South Korea, we need to import hydrogen from outside the country. And China is very different cases anyway. And about the finance, Korean government uses finance as a selective reward conditioned on climate performance. And limitations here, uncertain policy credibility and the continuity. And I will make additional explanation with the last slide. And the organization here, we do have an integrated management attempt centered on coordinating body. And the limitation here, we do have a structural gap in imported hydrogen environmental governance, which I explained already. And next will be the China. China is a very different model. On a state capitalism, China advances through national development plans rather than standalone legislation, diffusing rapidly through finance and state-owned enterprises. They are showing a strong agenda setting and eases early industry resistance. But they also have a limitation, which is about ambiguous sustainability criteria and fragmented regional data. In terms of authority, they are showing rapid local hydrogen implementation, and they are also showing administrative flexibility. And limitations here, regulatory inconsistency, and they are also showing the risk of short-term industrial expansion bias. In terms of finance and organization, strengths here: rapid market diffusion and project deployment with strong leadership of the Chinese government. And the limitations here, it was tied to the scale, not emissions, and the very weak carbon price limits renewable hydrogen. That will be the key limitation. And lastly, the organization, they are showing rapid deployment and integration into regional industrial strategy. And limitations here will be the fragmented governance, lack of transparency, and lack of social accountability. Next will be the Japan. On a developmental state in corporatist tradition, Japan shifts from strategy-led coordination to legislative governance with quantitative, very clear target, and the centralized finance is their strength. So the strengths here, transparent targets. So they are showing the exact hydrogen targets here and list international standard setting, which is important. And they are showing high import dependence. And basically, this problems is also same in South Korea too. High dependence on import, and also in terms of austerity, they don't have mandatory demand side measures, which slows demand transformation. But anyway, actually, in 2024, the Japanese government established Hydrogen Society Promotion Act, which is independent law, independent hydrogen law. And for your information, South Korea established independent hydrogen law in 2020, which is the world's first hydrogen law. And about the finance and organization, the strengths here: centralized long-term design, which gives stable funding signals. But still, they have limitation of high public finance reliance and sustainability concerns. In terms of organization, they are showing very stable and predictable governance and global supply chain expansion. Limitations here: risk of delayed policy adaptation to rapid technology market shifts. So this will be the comparison of three countries. So all three pursue the dual goals of decarbonization and the economic growth under the state leadership. Yet their instruments mixes differ according to the industrialization era and past dependency. So, in summary, South Korea shows a strong developmental state tradition, places relatively high weight on austerity, an instrument enforced through laws and statutory plans. And the Korean Hydrogen Act is the core of institutionalization. Next will be Japan. uh, Japan is showing developmental state tradition and corporatism gradually shifts from strategy-led coordination to legislative governance with the enactment of Hydrogen Society Promotion Act in 2024. And lastly, the China uh, shows strong state capitalism, and the Chinese government advances hydrogen through national development plans rather than standalone legislation. And state-owned enterprises and local governments are the implementation pillars. So key findings here: historical past dependency shapes state market relations and preferred modes of governance. And what matters is not the superiority of any single instrument, but how well coherence among the information, authority, finance, organization instruments is secured. So we actually derive five future tasks for sustainable hydrogen economy transition. First will be the enhancing instrument coherence. We should refine policy design, so information-based instrument connect consistently with authority regulation and financial incentives. Second will be strengthening private investment incentives. We should reduce reliance on non-binding guidelines and design mechanisms that encourage voluntary private participation for sustainability. And third will be the managing imported hydrogen impacts. So this is basically related to Japanese situation and Korean situation. We should establish institutional bases, dedicated regulators, and cross ministerial coordination, um, overcoming the silo to manage life cycle impacts and stages. The fourth will be strengthening regulatory binding force. We should gradually raise the legal binding force of hydrogen regulation to improve policy consistency and predictability. Finally, we should pursue sustainable financing models. We should diversify funding and explore long-term sustainable finance to ease reliance on public budget. So the conclusion. So beyond the effect of individual policy instrument, coherence among instruments has a greater impact on shaping the hydrogen industrial ecosystem, and successful development becomes possible when information provision, authoritative regulation, financial support, and organizational management are harmoniously combined. So this is actually, I put the last slide to explain a little bit of detailed of recent Korean hydrogen policy. First will be the legal restructuring. So in the legal framework, we officially separated H2 with renewables. So it was split. So this is a very recent event. And the second CHPS auction, actually, this was happened last year, was canceled, scaled back. So that's why we need to think about the consistency, why the policy coherence and policy consistency, yes, is important. And the rise of the nuclear power, but because we are running out of our time, so if you have any questions about the recent issues, I will explain it later. Okay, thank you for listening.
해야 되는 거예요? 자료가 일로 넘어가 있어야 돼가지고. 어디? Ah, here? Ah, okay. Point.
A point. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, nice. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me well? Okay. Okay. Thank you so much for inviting me today for coming to Busan. It's my second time to Busan, but after like more than 20 years. So actually, my name is Fan Ting Chen. I'm affiliated with the Institute of Developing Economies, which is located in Chiba, in Japan. And today I would like to talk about the Taiwan's case, climate change and energy policy, because it's more based on national levels from the perspective of governance. So the title for today is Governing the Energy Trilemma in Taiwan and Balancing Energy Security, the Decarbonization, and Social Acceptance. So this is a project that I'm dealing with in recent months, recent days. I'm going to develop this framework and to apply this research perspectives into Japan and Korea case. So I like to do the comparative studies in the coming years. Okay, so okay, so I would like to begin with the research questions. So since 2016, Taiwan has pursued major energy transitions. Well, the government announced three major objectives. First, phasing out nuclear power, and the second, achieving net zero emissions by 2050. And third is to expand renewable energy. Well, and of course, while maintaining the stable electricity supply. Well, however, these goals are not always compatible. Taiwan has faced rapidly increasing electricity demand, well, especially due to the AI industry developments and semiconductor manufacturing, and also the running of the data center. I think this is a situation that really common in East Asia countries, including Japan, Korea, and Taiwan. So I think, so therefore, my key question is that how has Taiwan can actually manage of this type of energy trilemma? Well, so energy trilemma consists of three dimensions. Well, the first one is energy security. The second one is environmental sustainability. And the third one is affordability or, well, political feasibilities. But actually, this is not a brand new idea or something. The analytical framework of energy trilemma actually has been proposed by the World Energy Council, WEC, and it's not a new idea. And actually, WEC releases its energy trilemma index every year under the organization's assessment. So traditionally, well, the framework evaluates energy systems using three dimensions, as I mentioned before: security, environmental sustainability, and then the equity, three dimensions. Well, however, the question I'm asking here is that, are these environmental indicators sufficient to understand the evolving energy trilemma in East Asia, or here in East Asia regions? So I think in East Asia, energy policy is increasingly influenced by geopolitical risks and industrial policies and social acceptance. So therefore, I think the governance itself becomes a very important dimension of the energy trilemma. So I think So today, I think Taiwan is a very good case study, excellent case study for examining these issues. Well, from now I would like to introduce more what's happening in Taiwan. So this slide summarizes Taiwan's major policy milestones. Well, first of all, it has targets for 20% renewable energies, 50% liquid natural gas and then LNG, and the 30% of coal. And while completing its nuclear phase out by 2025. And actually in 2023, the Climate Change Response Act legally established the 2050 net zero target and introduced a carbon pricing scheme in Taiwan. And what is part of a recent development of the climate policies. And in 2025, Taiwan completed the nuclear phase out and introduced the carbon fee system. So now we don't have, we have 0% nuclear energy for now. But however, I think this completion of nuclear phase out has also, as just the previous presentation also mentioned about nuclear energy. This type of completion of nuclear phase out also revived debates over whether nuclear power should be restarted in the future. So what are the results of these policies? So for now, Taiwan has successfully reduced its nuclear power generations. Well, however, renewable energy has not grown as quickly as originally expected. Meanwhile, LNG has expanded significantly and now accounts for nearly half of the electricity generations. And but coal still remains an important energy resources. So in other words, here is the trend of the energy power generations in recent years. So in other words, I think Taiwan has succeeded in nuclear phase out, but however, it has not achieved the envisioned low carbon energy mix. And still Taiwan remains highly dependent on fossil fuels, especially LNGs, or as you can see from this figure, especially on LNG and coal. And another major challenge is the rising electricity demands. Well, the main drivers are, artificial intelligence, AI, and semiconductor manufacturing, and also data centers, the running of the data, the many data centers. So by, according to estimations, by 2050, electricity demands could exceed like more than 500 terawatts hours. Yeah, and so how can it simultaneously ensure this is a trend, right? The electricity demand in the coming years. So I think we have to ask that: how can it simultaneously ensure the stable electricity supply, and while reducing carbon emissions, and also maintain affordable electricity prices and deal with relevant social conflicts? So I think this is a core question, a core issues of the energy trilemma. So in the following slides, I would like to discuss the development and challenges associated with each energy source. Well, I just mentioned this before. Yes. Okay, so I will just explore the challenges and problems from the perspectives of each renewable energy sources. The first one is LNGs. LNGs plays, as I mentioned, that accounts for nearly half of the power generations in recent years. So actually it plays a central role in Taiwan's energy transitions. However, an LNG expansion has generated social conflicts. A notable example is the third LNG receiving terminal in Guantang, Taoyuan area. And well, environmental groups argue that the projects would damage algal reef ecosystems and coastal wetlands. So as a result, this issue became a major political controversy in past few years, and still it continues. And in 2021, Taiwan held a national referendum on whether the third terminal, should be relocated to Taipei. But eventually, the proposal to relocate the terminal was rejected, and the construction continued. And actually, the referendum demonstrated not energy security and energy and environment protection are not merely technical issues, but they're deeply political and social questions. And also, Taiwan has also expanded solar PV, solar power rapidly. Solar power grew faster than wind power in the past because it was supported by domestic technology and supply chain, domestic Taiwan, in Taiwan. Well, however, land scarcity and has become a major challenge. I can show you the pictures here. Ground-mounted solar facilities often compete with agriculture and local communities, and Taiwan has, promoted like voltaics. I think there's also some projects in Korea and in Japan as well, which combines agriculture and solar generations. Also, it has introduced a fishery solar symbiosis, where solar panels are installed above the aquaculture ponds. What this project aims to create economic benefits while maintaining agriculture or fishery activities. But however, they have also generated criticism regarding for example, landscape degradations, environmental impacts, and also local participations. So actual public demonstration have continued, is still continuing, and highlighting, I think this case is highlighting social acceptance as a key governance challenges. And lastly is the offshore wind issues. Offshore wind is another important pillar of Taiwan's energy transitions, and Taiwan has planned to install between 40 to 55 gigawatts of offshore wind capacity by 2050. And today it ranks number 5 globally in terms of installed offshore wind power capacity. And the government has promoted offshore wind through auctions, feed-in tariff, and industrial localization policies. Nevertheless, however, still there's produce some conflicts. The one challenge is environment protections. Concerns have been raised about, for example, bird collisions and impacts on marine ecosystems, especially the endangered Indo-Pacific humpback dolphin, which is very sensitive to the noise of constructions. And of course, there are several approaches to mitigate these impacts. However, in many cases, I should say that they are more like adapted to primarily to satisfy the EIA, the environmental impact assessment requirements, rather than to truly, solve the underlying problems. Well, lastly, another challenge is concern is fisheries. Fishing associations have repeatedly, protested offshore wind projects, and compensations negotiations between developers and fishermen remain controversial, and lack of transparency. And so I think it results in dissatisfactions among fishery association and individual fishermen. Thus, I think this issue is not always simply how to generate renewable energy, but it is also about how to allocate costs and benefits fairly among different stakeholders. Okay, so let me conclude. Taiwan experience suggests that the energy trilemma is no longer limited to security or decarbonizations or affordabilities. I think today, social acceptance, fairness, and governance capacity, I think have become equally important. And of course, technology innovations will certainly help, but technology alone is not enough. So we also need effective social communication mechanisms that can really balance competing interests and building trust among governments, industries, and local communities, all the stakeholders. So therefore, I believe that continue to ask whether the current framework is sufficient will help us further advance our discussions on comparative research across East Asian regions. Thank you very much for your attention. I think I should stop here and looking forward to your comments and discussions. Thank you.
Okay, good morning to everyone. And my name is Xian Li, and I'm a PhD student in Department of Science and Technology at Aji University. And today I'm going to present a topic of local government-led RD100 and policy instrument, focusing on the case in Gyeonggi Province. Let's jump into the background of the research. My research topic begins with a concept that may already be familiar to many of you, the RD100. And RD100 stands for the Renewable Electricity 100, and it's a global corporate initiative that requires companies to source 100% of their electricity from renewable energy. And the initiative began as a voluntary private sector campaign, and has since it expanded around a corporate effort to achieve the carbon neutrality. And over time, the focus of discussion has shifted from who will join the campaign to how should it be implemented. And these discussions have been especially active in regions and countries with the high intensive economics and high industrial density. And as of the May 2026, a total of 443 companies have joined the RD100. And among these companies, more and more are requiring RD100 for their mandatory prerequisite for their global supply chains. And as a result, the renewable electricity became not only just a simple environmental issue, and it functions as a trade barrier and a significant business risk. And out of 443 companies, 37 companies are headquartered in Korea, and 29 of them are located in Gyeonggi. And this means that while industrial demands for renewable energy is high, but the actual supply in Gyeonggi province remains significantly insufficient. And since these companies are requiring RE100 for their global supply chain, this also put pressures on small and medium enterprises that work with 29 companies in Gyeonggi. So against this backdrop, the Gyeonggi province has been implementing the policy called Gyeonggi RE100, And now in its third year, it actually provides a timely case for study. So our study started to answer these two questions. And when we see the flow of the RD100, the initiative began in the United Kingdom and then spread through the United States and Japan to Gyeonggi province, and also later diffused into the Korea's national RD100. So we examined this pattern through the lens of policy diffusion theory and found out that the local government play a dual role. They're both the targets of the top-down policy diffusion starting at the international level and a starting point of the bottom-up policy diffusion that moves from the regional level to national level. So we selected the 4 local governments that play a leading role in renewable energy transition and conducted the case studies to identify which policy instrument they use. And after that, we used the WHAT NATO framework to classify them and conducted the AHP analysis and open-ended survey with experts. And the main methodology in our study is AHP, which is known as the analytic hierarchy process. And the AHP is a multi-criteria decision-making technique. So in complex decision-making problems, it quantifies the relative importance of multiple criteria through the comparison, pairwise comparison on a 1 to 9 scale and derive a hierarchy of priority. And a total of 26 experts participated in our AHP, with 10 from academia and 8 from the public sector and another 8 from the private sector. 65% of our expert panel had more than 10 years of professional experience, so we made every effort to ensure the panel was both institutionally representative and professionally qualified. And I will walk you through the result one by one. So starting with the international case studies on local government-led energy transition, and starting with the Copenhagen, Denmark. In 2012, the Copenhagen established the CPH 2025 climate plan, and through the citizen-funded wind cooperative, they decentralized the energy ownership. And by 2021, the carbon dioxide emission had fallen by 72.6% compared to 2005. And moving on to Burlington, Vermont, in the United States. And back in 2014, Burlington became the first city in the United States to achieve the 100% renewable electricity. Then in 2014, they established a new net zero energy city 2030 roadmap. And what stands out here is that city-owned utility known as BED served as an integrated platform for the energy transition. So by the 2023, the greenhouse gas emission in transport and thermal sector has fallen by 17% compared to 2018. And the third case is Heidelberg, Germany, which aims to become a fully climate neutral city by 2030. And they're driving the transition through the citizen energy cooperative and district heating expansion. And they have already achieved the 65% reduction in final energy consumption. And the final case is Singapore. And while Singapore has a unique character of being a city-state, so we included it in our study because the framework is highly applicable at subnational policy level. And they also, by standardized a contract and long-term agreement, they secure the project stability, and they maximize the solar deployment on a limited land use. And these 4 cities had different national context on renewable energy transition, but we classify them into the NATO's framework as follow. And I will share the core result of this study, the AHP analysis. I'm starting with the level 1, the 4 NATO dimensions. The treasure came out on top, followed by organization and totality, while the authority ranked lowest. And moving on to level 2 result, the 8 specific policy instrument, the financial incentive ranked first, followed by site development support and multi-stakeholder governance. And climate leadership came in last. So overall, the top 3 policy instrument cluster around the financial capacities and the organizational capacities, while the permitting procedure under the authority ranked lowest of all. And while the AHP showed us which policy instrument matter, this next part captured the expert opinions on why do they matter and how they should be addressed. When we analyzed the expert responses, the 4 major themes emerged. And the first theme is a financial risk and public guarantee. And more than anything, the expert emphasized that the structural investment risk that private sector alone cannot observe. And these include the leased factory and aging building, a lack of insurance and guarantee system, and high mechanism uncertainty. So to address this issue, the expert actually recommended the local government to take on a role of public guarantor. So by providing a risk sharing and guarantees and insurance mechanism, they can lower the entry barriers for the private capital. And the second theme is a site development and regulation alignment. And the common problems here were the site acquisition difficulties and setback and building regulation and inconsistency in regulations across the municipal level governments. Especially within the same metropolitan area, the regulations vary significantly from city to city and county to county. So the expert actually recommended that public-led site development and regulatory harmonization must go in hand to make project feasible. And because of the time limitation, I will jump right into the conclusion and the limitation. 종료를 드셔가지고 알겠습니다. 아닙니다. Okay, the third theme is governance and stakeholder coordination, and the expert emphasized that in current RE100 implementation, the participation of small and medium-sized enterprises and private developer is limited. And they also noted the local conflicts over renewable energy facility and low public acceptance and awareness remain persistent barrier. So the expert, to address this, the expert pointed out the strengthening the multi-stakeholder governance with the public sector taking on an active facilitator role. And lastly, the expert emphasized the beyond the existing 4 dimensions of NATO framework, the 3 new policy capacities are now needed, and these include energy transition, ecosystem building, and mid-term monitoring, and so on. And to conclude, I will share some key findings and limitation of this study. Beforehand, our study actually combined international case studies with expert-based AHP and open-ended survey with experts to identify which policy instruments are most needed to effectively implement RE100 at subnational level. And the key finding is the first key finding, first key finding, the treasure, including the financial incentive and public guarantee and risk reduction mechanism, emerged as the most decisive factor for scaling the RE100. And this confirms that high risk and high cost project just like RD100, local government build market trust and provide a stable investment condition by acting as a financial guarantor. And second, organization capacities, including site development support and multi-stakeholder governance, was identified as capacities uniquely held by the subnational government. And this aligns with the Wood's theoretical assumption, and it suggests that rather than relying only on top-down regulations from the central government, local government can build a meaningful policy momentum but when they actively leverage the physical and administrative resources. And our study has academic significance in that it identifies the new policy capacity beyond the existing 4 NATO framework. And our study has three main limitations. Since our study focused on Gyeonggi province as a single regional case, so the result cannot be fully generalized. And second, both AHP and open-ended survey rely on the expert, so it's difficult to completely rule out the subjectability related to the respondent pool. For the third, even though the RD100 operates within the multi-layer and complex governance, we use the NATO framework, which is relatively a traditional classification tool. We compensated for this in part through the qualitative analysis, but still it was difficult to completely fully capture the dynamics of the policy mix. So we believe the future study should include the longitudinal analysis using performance indicator, comparative studies with other regional government, and research in integrating the broader stakeholders' perspective, such as residents and small medium enterprises and civil society, to strengthen generalizability. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening.
For the question part, I would like to invite all panelists to do the All right. So if you have like a 20 and 3 more minutes, so you have a dedicated for this. So I would like to ask Dr. Kwon, Dr. Lee, followed by Dr. Bang and Dr.
Thank you very much for the very interesting and organized presentation. I have a couple of questions and suggestion for the this interesting research. First one is all 3 countries have a very the government and state-led regulation for the hydrogen policy. I think it can be framed as a course isomorphism with regulation and policies. I'm the organization theorist. I'm very comfortable with the theory. I'm not saying that this research does not have a theory, but if possible, the coercive isomorphism can be explained as a theoretical framework for this kind of the policy and state-led hydrogen policy. It's related to the second question. So there is a case for the public-private partnership or the cooperation for this hydrogen policy in Japan. It is very important to involve the private sector and the market into the like a renewable energy and some kind of this kind of energy policy. But there should be some demands. Why we need hydrogen? What kind of incentives people or the market can get from this policy that can initiate the incentives to involve the market and private sector. Without the private sector environment, not many like a public policy can succeed. Also, we have to think about how can we involve the citizens' input for this kind of policy, energy policy. Why people or citizens may need this kind of energy. What kind of incentives people can get. That can be framed as a co-production of the energy policy by involving the citizens' input. Also, the third question, policy coherence is very important, as the research suggests. Also, the policy should be consistent. However, it can lead to the like some kind of rigid policy. In this kind of very unpredictable, uncertain, like a global situation, a lot of many policies or the government leaders should adapt to the new social change. So it is very important to balance between the consistency and adaptive capability. So policy should be consistent as well as adaptive to the new social challenges. So it will be much better to emphasize the balance between the consistency and adaptation to new social change. Yeah, that's it for my comments on this research. If I have a question on the third research presentation, can I say that right now? Or
yeah, sure thing. Go ahead, please.
okay. For the third research presentation, I have a question. There is a RE100, like a global initiatives, and Gyeonggi province adopted and initiated Gyeonggi RE100, right? And it leads to the national RE100, right? In the presentation.
Actually, the Korea's national RE100 stands before the Gyeonggi RE100, but actually they didn't make. They only make the plan. They didn't actually implement it. So, in respect of the project implementation, then Gyeonggi RE100 goes before the Korea's national RE100.
That's why you are suggesting the Gyeonggi RE100 is some kind of the effects on the national level before the national implementation, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. But in this case, we have to think about the authority of the Gyeonggi province. They actually do not have a legal authorities, so that can be just for the agenda setting or some kind of the bottom, as you said, bottom up the initiation for the national level policy implementation. Yeah. So little than the just kind of the policy diffusion. I don't know how to frame it, but the decoupling between the national and subnational, that can be institutional level, some kind of institutional void, institutional gap, that can be framed as for the research question. Thank you.
Okay, so Dr. Lee, do you have any responses to the Dr. Huang's comments? Yep.
Thank you, Dr. Wang.
Oh, don't fight, right?
I'm not fighting. Yes. So this is basically our continuous work after publishing a hydrogen governance and sustainability report by German Institute RIFS, which was funded by the federal government of Germany. So this report was actually published last year. And Dr. Fang Chang was one of the editor, and I was the author of Korean part. So this is kind of subsequent work after the government report. So that's why maybe like it's not really a theoretical work, but still I think it means a lot to especially like countries like Germany. They are really for the green hydrogen, so they're curious about what Asian countries are doing. So yes, so please think of that.
Any follow-up? Dr. Chen has some more follow-ups. Yeah, please go ahead.
Can I add something? Yeah, I certainly very just agree with Professor Huang's comments about the market. This is very important, and you cannot just produce a lot of hydrogen without using that. So in Japan, in Taiwan, we are discussing about how to use hydrogen, because hydrogen is not only used for energy sectors, but also for transport, right? Transport sectors. So, and it need to be expanded. And also recently, I found that actually the hydrogen is used for semiconductor manufacturing. So I think this is also to link the hydrogen issues with the supply chain of the semiconductors and also the economic security issues. So I think to promote or to enhance the legal framework or the policy arrangement for hydrogen is important, but the other perspectives to broaden the market, the demand of the hydrogen, and then it can achieve the cost down, and finally it can enhance the development of hydrogen energy. So I think that's a really very important comments. Yeah, just trying to ask at some point.
Okay, so actually I don't have any question, but just comments. I think the three presentation gave us some opportunity to compare nations and their policies in East Asia. And then I saw some commonalities among those countries, but not perfectly. But I saw some globally synchronized sector in energy industries. I think there are some power of technologies and markets that makes some countries moving in some similar or the same patterns, because there are many different parts, the religion, culture, and the civil society as well between South Korea and Taiwan. But the thing is, the trend or trajectories of energy industries are quite similar, and then the same issues even in among United States and South Korea and Japan and Taiwan like this. So, but there are some differences, I think, that might be influenced by the local politics, policies, and the social perception by individuals toward the energy sources, right? So three presentations, yes. So it's good. So for me, it was great opportunity to see the differences and then how things are going in in Taiwan. And then one thing that I suggest you is that how about inserting the situation of abandoned energy facilities in Taiwan? So because the agrivoltaic in aquaculture, right? There might be some abandoned things in there, and how can we deal with the not inefficient energy facilities in this case? Because it might be great for enhance energy sustainability in energy trilemma, right? And then the second point is that it is surprising for me to see that there is some movement to talk about the nuclear stars recently. Yeah, so Professor Lee's presentation, we South Korea also increase electricity generated by the nuclear facilities nowadays. So I think there might be some point to see what kind of factors can make two countries move together or move differently. That kind of the question might be the great research starts by using the energy trilemma framework. Because there are three sectors in the energy trilemma framework, as you know. But my question is, what are the levers to move toward the energy security or energy sustainable like this? There might be some combination of the market, technology, and politics and public administration, social, and the civil society as well. Yeah, they kind of the lever, and then if possible, we can make some energy trilemma lever index, and then so what are the consequences of or the changes like that. So okay. So to wrap up my comments, so I think it's great. And then I enjoyed the presentation to see what's happening in Taiwan. Thank you for your presentation.
Just a very quick response. Well, as I mentioned in my presentation, the WEC, World Energy Council, actually released the trilemma index every year online and also release its reports. But seeing from outside, Taiwan, Japan, Korea ranked as the top countries in the index. So seeing from outside, well, it is assessed like a good model for satisfying the trilemma. So everything looks fine compared to other developing countries, because there are a lot of blackouts or the electricity prices cannot be afforded in other developing countries. But within the region, within the East Asia regions, 3 countries actually have many difficulties that have to be encountered, that have to be dealt with. If you look into the details, if you look into the cases, the conflicts, the demonstration, the confrontation is so strict in terms of energy transitions. So I think that's why I'm kind of rethinking the trilemma issue, because it's not the new ideas. So I think it is important to starting from this framework and to rethinking the framework and to look into the details. And for the secondly, for the comments of nuclear, actually it's in Taiwan and of course in Japan, in Taiwan I think it's already moved on to the restart of the nuclear, but not the fourth one, not the newest one, but the oldest one, but the old one, number 1, 2, 3 nuclear power plants. But it will take like at least 3 years to restart, because you have to run all the procedure from beginnings. So, but I think there's a lot of pressures, of course, AI, as I mentioned before, and maybe from states, from US, and so it's not only the energy. But it's also about the security issues, energy security issues. So I think the discussion is there, and I think the current government, even though it's under DPP light administrations, I think it's moved on to the direction, and also in Japan, because of the same reasons. So it's already restarted, and it's going to be expand. I mean, to restart the restart of nuclear, even though we had Fukushima, but so now it's still taboo. It's a taboo in Japan, but the taboo is getting mitigated right in Japan, and it's moved on to the restart, in the region. So as mentioned about the commodities of Korea, Japan, Taiwan, it's the direction comes really like the same, but if you look in details, there are so many differences. Okay, I'll just stop here. Thank you. The third one, yes, I think thank you much for your presentation. I really learned a lot from the studies. Always the PhD student studies a lot. Yes, and very decent and concise presentation. So I think the paper addressed very timely and important questions on how can local governments promote RE100 in regions where industrial demand is high, but the renewable energy resources are limited. I think I found this paper particularly valuable under this question but I think it's very valuable for 3 dimensions. I think first one is I think you link the policy diffusion with policy instrument. I think the authors argue that RE100 originated as a voluntary corporate initiatives, right? But diffused to a sub-nation level through Gyeonggi provinces, and then may eventually influence the national policies, such as the KRE100. So I think this is a very important contribution because it demonstrates that the policy diffusion is not simply a matter of copying policies. It evolves, it changes, and it derives. So I think the local governments can play the role of reinterpret the policies and translate the global ideas into their own industrial context. I think this, Gyeonggi province. I also have a question about Gyeonggi province because I'm not familiar. I'm not familiar with the Gyeonggi province. So what's the motivation? What's the incentives for? Or what's the capability or potentials for Gyeonggi province to dedicate itself to the RE100 policy? I think this quite because I lack of knowledge about this region. So I think, but anyway, I think Gyeonggi province actually acts as a policy entrepreneur and intermediary between the global incentives and national governance. And another thing that interests me a lot is the financial intensives ranked first or among the tops, and followed by others like governance or regulatory authorities and procedures, something like that. I think that this finding suggests that the local governments may have more influence through financial and organizational capacities than through formal regulatory authorities. I think this is very important because I think it is not only for Korea, but also for many countries or many other regions in East Asia. And because of time limitation, I think. Oh, and you mentioned about the beyond NATO, right? So I think energy transition governance today is characterized by multilateral governance and public and private partnerships and rapid technological change. So therefore, I think the traditional or classical policy instrument or this kind of theoretical frameworks is maybe no longer be sufficient. So I would like to raise some questions. The first one's about the Gyeonggi province, and the second one's is about your beyond NATO idea. So you mentioned about the NATO idea should be expanded. So in practically speaking, should we add some more criteria to NATO, or you think that we should move towards an entire new framework for understanding the energy transitions? And the second one is, looking from Gyeonggi province, do you have any ideas in mind that can this research framework could be applied to other regions or other cities or province in other countries. And if you have time, you can also respond to my third question is about, I know that the IU100, a lot of big companies are declare its targets to achieve IU100. But for those big companies, it's not that difficult because they have resources, they have manpower, they have money, they have budget to do that. But for small and middle scale companies, and they are in the supply chain, but they don't have enough capabilities to deal with the RE100. They're sometimes they're shocked about, I should cut percentage of emissions. So I mean, sometimes they have limitations to dealing with the RE100. I know a lot of example in Japan and in Taiwan. So I'm wondering what is the situation in Korea. So I just stop here. Yeah. Take your time.
Okay, thank you for the wonderful question. And there was three main questions that I need to answer. So first, we focused on Gyeonggi province because it's a home for a major exporter like Samsung and SK Hynix. And with 29 Korea's 37 RE100 members and based are there. And that's why we focused on that, like Gyeonggi province especially. And yet its renewable energy supplies fall well beyond the national average. So the the supply demands gap makes it critical like testing ground for the subnational for regional led RD100. And for the second question, so I'm not arguing about I'm not arguing on entirely the whole framework, but rather than extending the what's existing NATO framework. Like since our finding like shows it still has like analytic values, but it needs to account for hybrid instruments like and multi-layer governance dynamics. And for the last question, like I think the framework can be applied to other Korean regions like Chungcheongdo or Gyeongsangnam-do, I believe. Yeah, Gyeongsangnam-do, I guess. Like so, yes, and they have high demand and low supply, s- low supply for the industrial infrastructure. So I guess I think they cannot afford the financial problems because like funding for the like solar project needs a lot of money to afford it. So I guess yeah, that would be the answer for the questions.
And we can keep talking later on the session. But I would like really thank you for three presenters and two discussions. And it was a lovely session. So thank you so much. And please enjoy the city of Busan for the rest of time. Thank you.